We're going to switch it up. We're going to go to the 2025 season predictions. I'm going to give you my week by week analysis, just kind of high level. So we're going to pull up the playoff predictors website. I'm not sure if anybody's used it. Really helpful for if you're doing your own predictions. It's really helpful also for the NFL if it's like week 13 and your team has got a chance at the playoffs and you're trying to figure out scenarios, see how well your team does. So we're going to take a look at it. And that's where I'm going to make my predictions and we'll go just week by week. It's going to show the bye weeks as well. So it's just going to be really helpful to see who we are playing. Here we are. So like I said, it's going to be some high level analysis, nothing too in depth. We're going to start going over that in the following weeks. This is a show that's going to go every Monday at 5:30. And as we get into the season, and the season is very close, we're going to start previewing games. So not this coming weekend, but the next weekend is the Alabama A&M game. So next Monday, we're going to be previewing that game. And then each week, we're going to go over the game that happened before and the game that's coming up. So like I said, there's not going to be too high level analysis here. We're going to keep it pretty brief because we're going to get in depth as we go throughout the season. So let's start off with Alabama A&M. Like I said, we're going to keep it pretty brief here. I think we win this football game. Start off 1-0. This is an FCS football team, and it's not a very good one. You saw what we did the UAPB. It was probably a little bit worse, 70-0. I don't think it'll necessarily be that dominant. That was kind of an outlier game, but I do expect this to be a pretty dominant performance from us to start off the season. So I believe we start off 1-0. Then we go to Arkansas State, and you can't see it here, but this game's going to be in Little Rock. I don't love that. I think it's really helpful when we get to play up in Northwest Arkansas. We get as many home games up there as we can, just because we have the greatest atmosphere and the most amount of fans we can get. And Arkansas State honestly wasn't a bad football team yet last year. This is a team that was 7-0 in one-score games, so I think that that shows that there's going to be a little bit regression. So I'm not necessarily too worried about this. It's just if I could have it my way, this would be being played in Fayetteville. But Arkansas State, they do return their starting quarterback, Jalen Rayner. I don't think that's going to be enough for the Red Wolves to beat us. So I'm going to go 2-0 on this one. All right. The next week, we're going to be playing Ole Miss. So Arkansas fans know, honestly, since Lane Kiffin's been here, we've played Ole Miss really well. Not last year. I'm sure many remember home game where we got dominated defensively. We were really poor. Dart threw all over us. Jordan Watkins had probably the best game of his career. So we're going to be facing them kind of early this year. It's going to be week 3, our first SEC game of the year. And my pick on this one is really going to be Ole Miss. And I'm going to give it to you for 2 reasons. One, just a little skepticism, probably just early season, how well we're going to be in form. And I think that first SEC game, I think we could surprise Ole Miss, but I think Ole Miss could ultimately surprise us as well. This is a team under Lane Kiffin that's had great quarterback production, really, no matter what, who was playing quarterback for them. And so I think that a guy in Austin Simmons, he is raw, he is new, but I don't expect too much of a deficit from what guys he's had in the past. So I think Ole Miss wins this one. I also think too, this was a really poor defensive performance last year. So I think as players, they really want to improve after what they did last year. So when you lose a game, especially as kind of embarrassingly as you did last year, you really want to take revenge and really get after them the next year. My one caveat though to it this year, and I really see being maybe not as revenge game as it was or as it could be, is really just because a lot of those defensive players that were on this team last year that were a part of that 60+ performance by Ole Miss aren't here. So Xavier Sori is going to remember it really well, and hopefully he can motivate that defense to completely change what they did last year and really hold them this year. But I think with a lot of those guys gone, Landon Jackson, Hudson Clark, Kiwi Rose, a lot of the guys that we talked about on the dudes that are leaving the defense, they're going to be gone. And I hope that they're up for this game. I think it's going to be an opportunity for us to see how really what we're made of in week 3. And just a really quality SEC opponent, and an SEC opponent that we usually play well. So I'm being a little pessimistic on this one. I ultimately think that we lose, start off the season 2-1. But I'm going to be a little optimistic on this one. I think we beat Memphis. So this is a team that's been really productive as a non-Power 4 conference team. One of the best, honestly, in the American Athletic. They had a really good quarterback, Seth Hennigan, there last year. He won't be this year. Brendan Lewis, a quarterback from Nevada, transfers in to be the quarterback for them, hoping to match Seth Hennigan's production. I don't know if they will. This is a team that is really talented, is really good at their level, and it's a road game, so it's going to be really difficult for us. But I think coming off a loss against Ole Miss, we're going to be really motivated to prove ourselves, and I think that we ultimately get a win here and move to 3-1. So this is the big home game of the year. Week 5 against Notre Dame, a top 10 ranked team, the team that finished runner up in the entire nation last year. But I do think they come with a few question marks. Quarterback Riley Leonard is gone. They're bringing in a new guy to play the quarterback position. It'll either be Carr or another guy they have on their team, but ultimately it's going to be a new quarterback for them. Jeremiah Love is back, one of the most productive running backs in the country. And so that's going to be really helpful for them. They have a really impressive receiving core, and that'll be good for them as well. But I think that this ultimately is going to be just too much talent against Arkansas here. I think that we're going to give them all we have. I think this is a sleeper game to definitely cover, and hopefully we can upset the Fighting Irish. But I think this is a spot where just I believe they just are too talented. I think that we are going to lose this football game. We'll be 3-2 going into the bye week. And like I said, for all these games, we're going to be talking more about them as the season goes on. So maybe if we're 4-0 going into this game, I'll feel differently. But ultimately, 3-2 going into the bye week. All right, Tennessee. This was the magical game last year. What do we see from our team this year? Coming off the bye, I think that's really helpful. I believe Tennessee is also coming off the bye, so kind of negates that. Um, but I think Tennessee is going to be really motivated to play us this year. I'm a little worried by that. Obviously, they were the number 4 team in the country when we beat them last year. We embarrassed them on the biggest stage, and I think they're going to want that revenge. Obviously, Nico is not back, and like I made the case for Arkansas on their defense against Ole Miss, not having Nico there is probably very similar, where maybe there isn't as much motivation, as much embarrassment to beat us. Um, but I do think that a road game, Tennessee's coming off a bye. They still are a team that is really highly respected. I do think we lose this football game. And after week 7, 3-3, going into Texas A&M week. So, as many Arkansas fans know, A&M has been an absolute killer of a game since they moved into the SEC. We rarely win this football game. But this is also a football game that's been played in Jerry World, AT&T Stadium, ever since they've joined the SEC, and this is the first year where it's not. So we are getting to host them in Donald W. Reynolds, and I think that's going to make all the difference. This is a team coached by Mike Elko, second year, Marcel Reed at the quarterback position. I think a lot of A&M fans are really excited for this season. I think that they may even do good things, but I don't think it's going to come against Arkansas. I think that a team that has just been beat down and beat down and beat down, um, year in and year out. Very few wins against the A&M Aggies over the last 10, 12 years since they've been in the SEC. I think it really comes right here for an opportunity for us to really show out in the home stadium. And I think this is one, honestly, if it was in AT&T Stadium, I would be picking the Aggies. But I think we can win this football game, and I think we moved 4-3. So hosting Auburn. So far, I think that there hasn't been anything that I've done that's been really crazy. I think that for the most part, these are probably going to be the betting favorites, other than maybe the Aggies game where we may not be favored. But for the most part, it's been pretty chalk. This is one where I think it's going to go a little bit awry. I think that we lose this game to Auburn. So I talked about Ole Miss and how we've had really good games against Ole Miss, how we've done better than I think a lot of fans expected. Auburn's kind of the opposite. The recent history, I believe we've kind of underperformed. So this is a spot where I think 3 home games in a row. We're looking to Mississippi State, who I don't think is going to have a productive season, as an easy win. We're maybe looking ahead to LSU post bye week, Texas post bye week. We've won 4 games. We really think bowl eligibility is a possibility, and I think we kind of sleep on this game. Auburn wasn't great last year. We beat them. We beat them early in the season. It really wasn't close. I don't think a lot of people saw that coming. I know I didn't see it coming, especially how bad we beat them. But I think they're going to be back and they're going to be hungrier. They have a new quarterback in Jackson Arnold, who I think is going to be productive for them. But this is a game where I think we'll be favored in this game, especially if we beat A&M the previous week. I think we always lay at least a dud each season, and I think this is a spot where that's going to happen. I don't love predicting this, but I do think that's what's going to happen. 4-4. So we enter the last 4 weeks of the season. Bowl eligibility is on our minds. Week 10, Arkansas hosting Mississippi State, I believe we win this football game. Mississippi State, by a lot of like SEC fans, is considered probably the worst team right now. Usually that goes to Vanderbilt, but Diego Pavia's got them humming. So Mississippi State's kind of accepted that role under Jeff Lebby these like first year and maybe even second year. We'll see how they do, but this is a spot at home. We beat them on the road last year. I think we can beat them at home this year. The last time we played them at home, I believe it was like a 7-3 football game. It was not a like fun one to watch. So I think this is a spot where we can really redeem ourselves offensively. And I think that we win this football game. We go over 500. We're 5-4, and we're looking to the back quarter of the season. So we have 2 bye weeks this year. This is bye week number 2. We're going to be facing LSU and Garrett Nussmeier. I feel like we've had success against Nussmeier. We won that game in 21 when Nussmeier was the starting quarterback. Uh, we played them well early last year, didn't finish well late, lost that game at home. This is a game on the road. I don't believe LSU's on a bye, kind of like Tennessee was on that week 7 game. Week 12, I believe it's just us on a bye week. This is a spot where I think we could cover, and nobody wants to hear that. But I don't think we win this game. LSU's a really talented team this year. This is really a prove it year for Brian Kelly, make or break year, honestly. And I think in a rivalry game, that's kind of become less and less of a rivalry year over year, just because of the football playoff and just the games have kind of meant less a little bit in the regular season. This game doesn't mean as much as it could, I think. I think we're going to be up for it. I think we're going to play them close. I could see this being around a 2 touchdown line, and I think that we keep it one possession and ultimately have a shot to win this football game. But I don't think we do. So 5-5, last 2 weeks of the season. This is where in past seasons we've kind of played like a FCS or a Group of 5 team right before Missouri, or in these later weeks. We don't have that this year. We play all our non-conference games early, and we played currently number 1 in the AP poll, Texas and Arch Manning. So last year it was closer. It was really close for a lot of the game. That second half kind of got away from us, and ultimately Texas won. But this was a team that was in the college football playoff and won a game in the college football playoff. So won multiple games, if I'm correct. So this is going to be a difficult matchup. This is one I don't see being particularly close, though. This is the first time Texas hosted us, I think, in a long time. We've played them at home last year, and then the year in 21 when we beat them with Bijan Robinson. But this year we're playing at Texas. I think we come off a week where we played really close. I think we finished that week a little discouraged. And we play one of the top teams in the country. They may not be number 1 at the time, but I think they're going to be easily in probably the top 5. And they even could be number 1. So this is going to be a tough matchup to win. Ultimately 5-6, head into the last week. I'm not going to pick us to go 5-7. I'm going to pick us to go 6-6 and beat Missouri. Missouri was a team last year. We lost to them. We had already gotten old bowl eligibility. I think there was a little less motivation for that. Missouri was a good football team. This is another team kind of like A&M. We just haven't played as well. But this was a team, if you remember 2 years ago, to go 4-8, we got murdered by them at home. And I think there's going to be some revenge factor here after what had happened 2 years ago. We also lost to them last year. And this is a team that's significantly less talented than they were last year. Brady Cook, a longtime quarterback for them, is gone. Luther Burden, one of the best players they've had in their history, is gone. They return a couple of guys offensively, a lot defensively. Jalen Catalon, former Arkansas player, playing defensive back for them. So I'm sure he'll be motivated for this game. But this is a team that has significantly less talent and a winnable game for us. I wouldn't be surprised even if we're 5-6, if we're favored in this game. Missouri, I assume, will have maybe a similar record. They could be a little bit higher. I know their schedule is a little easier than ours. We do have one of the more difficult schedules in the SEC and in the country this year. So I think we finish out 6-6. Ultimately, I think we will make a bowl game, probably very similar to what we did last year. Maybe a game against either a high-level Group of 5 team or a low-level 7-5, 8-4 potentially power conference team. I think we are better than our record indicates. LSU and Tennessee and Texas and Notre Dame and Ole Miss, those are tough games to win, especially when they're on the road, specifically LSU, Texas, and Tennessee. I think the ceiling really could be an 8-4 squad. I think that we could beat Ole Miss. Like I said, Auburn, I think we're going to be favored in that game, but ultimately just fall short. But I think the floor is also maybe 4-8. I think that A&M game we won't be favored in. We could ultimately lose that football game. Memphis, a team that's really good. We talked about how great of a group of 5 school they are. We could ultimately lose that football game. Missouri was a team that may have won 10 games last year. So there's a lot of spots for a lot of variance, but ultimately, I think we're going to finish 6-6. That's 3-5 in conference. And like I mentioned earlier, we're going to be talking about each one of these games as the season goes on. So, like I said, very high level, nothing too in depth, and we're just going to keep it there. 6-6, 3-5, and so that's kind of what I see for the Arkansas Razorbacks this year.